Hello? Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Our client is Steenrod Elementary, and we are Flower Power. So, Steenrod Elementary is located in Wheeling, West Virginia, and they have a green sustainability club that consists of about 8 to 10 members of 9 to 11-year-olds. And we have visited them almost every other Wednesday or every Wednesday to play test and meet with them. So I'm Casey. I'm the producer.
I'm Longy. I'm the programmer.
I'm Joe. I'm the programmer.
I'm Gibran. I'm the designer.
I'm the artist.
I'm Jacob. I'm external producer and designer.
And our instructors are Mike and John. So who we are. Our goal is to promote recycling and sustainability through an iPad app, where each player gets 4 networked iPads for 9 to 11-year-olds. We hope that this will spark discussion between teachers and students, where they're able to discuss the gameplay and how their actions created effects in the environment. And now, we've also play tested with about 80 kids so far from different schools, as well as Steenrod Elementary. And now Jacob and Gibran will discuss the design.
Thank you. So to begin our design process, we began to look at other games situated in the sustainability and green living space. Projects at the ETC like Joule in energy conservation, and projects like Lauder E in air pollution management, and also other sustainability games that happen to be mostly recycling, such as National Geographic's Recycling Roundup and PBS's Garbage Streams. And during quarters, as we began to explore a more collaborative social aspect, we were encouraged to look at Pandemic, which we also did. However, we always wanted this project to be a co-design with Steenrod Elementary. So we went there on our first visit and did a bunch of different improv, drawing, and other exercises to see what was important to them and what they understood sustainability and green living to be and what they thought obstacles to that were. And the students really were focused on waste management, recycling, community gardening, and other sort of community engagement things they could do to reduce their waste. So taking this idea of looking at waste management and sustainability of litter, we developed 3 different concepts, or we built a bunch of concepts and whittled them down to 3. Plants versus garbage, landfill hunter, and sustainable towns. And we went and playtested this with our client. They really enjoyed the collaborative aspect of sustainable town. They enjoyed collaborating together to build a city that would flourish and produce more income and more buildings. And they really liked the exploratory crafting aspect of landfill hunter, what they could make with certain things, what sort of recyclable materials they could combine together to create something new. So we took this and strengthened our concepts. We also developed a new prototype. So we added new roles to Sustainable Town and new things to increase the role-playing and social aspect. And in Landfill Hunter, we created new materials and processes by which they could process the recycling to make a more rich crafting experience. Our new prototype was called Filthfling, which was a collaborative game that had players take on the role of either paper, plastic, metal, or glass, and sort trash together at a time limit. If the timer ran out before they had properly sorted the trash, the pollution would rise and they'd be penalized. And the kids really seemed to enjoy this. To talk about our results with these prototypes and our further iteration, I'll turn it over to Gibran.
Cool. Thank you so much. So taking our 3 paper prototypes, what we essentially observed was there was good discussions again in Sustainable Town. The kids enjoyed the developed crafting system that we created with Landfill Hunter, and they really enjoyed the chaos of Filthling's mechanics. Now, this is all well and good, but we needed to create a single experience, so we needed to narrow it down. One particular tool that was very helpful to us was defining design pillars. The 3 pillars that we created were fun first, social, and educational. Taking these pillars, we went back and we scrutinized each of the 3 experiences to see what served us best. So looking at Sustainable Town, it hit social and educational, but due to the strategic nature of the game, it was proving to be a barrier of entry that was undesirable. Next, with Landfill Hunter, it hit fun first and was educational. I mean, students saw the recycling process, but it wasn't so social, as only 1 or 2 people would be able to control the recycling process. Lastly, we looked at Filthling. Now, we observed the best out of this, from playtests. Also, due to the simplicity of the experience, it was an accessible game in terms of social. We figured, though, that we needed to shore up the educational pillar, and so we went along with this experience, following the fun. So with this new focus on Filthling, the next for design was shoring up each of the design pillars in regard to this experience. So for fun first, we wanted to harness the chaos of Filthling, and so we digitized it. Next, for the social element, we wanted to engineer social moments where players would have to interact. We felt this was important. So now, instead of simply recycling, you would create components which would be used in collaborative crafting. And then the next part is we introduced a number of network events, disaster events or edict events, where students would have to get together and vote together and discuss what was going on. Next, lastly, the educational pillar. So for this, we used a tool, Sabrina Silva's transformational framework. This helped us to identify barriers as well as transformational goals in the experience, which helped us define that better. Next, we thought what we learned from our previous prototypes we could bring into this experience. We brought the recycling processes from Landfill Hunter as well as the edicts from Sustainable Towns. And the edicts would act as ways for students to talk about actionable items that they could perform at home. So enough about design. I'm going to hand it over to Mai now. We'll talk about the art side of our experience.
Thank you, Jibril. So our art journey is actually longer than what we can cover in the slide, so please go to our website for the full version, which will be posted after today. A crucial lesson we learned from this journey is that you ought to find out what you want to communicate before you think about how you do the art. A few weeks ago, we were focusing on pushing the quality of our 2D graphics because our clients responded well to rich organic art styles. So we studied the process behind 3 award-winning animations in game, which led to 2 of our own prototypes with positive feedbacks. But something felt missing. The artistic choice felt ungrounded. So we went back and did extensive industry research on aesthetics and usability. And the result of that research is a turning point in our design process. 1, we compiled a short list of principles we should follow. And 2, we realized art style does not equal a vision. Without a vision, your art has no emotional core. And beautiful styles are just pretty stuff thrown together. So what is our vision? Well, we know that our vision needs to fit our aesthetic principles, dare to be different, visually striking, and to be rooted in something, in history, in culture, or memory. So I was going through Disney's art archives, and when I come across this image about stained glass art, and it has a very unique personality. It's beautiful and physical, and furthermore, it is a traditional medium that uses to tell allegorical stories, which is exactly what we are doing, telling an allegory about saving the planet. So I knew at that moment that this style can be a vision that unifies everything. Then the UI came naturally. We imagined a city for recycling centers, all collected in an open environment, using a swiping gesture to switch between city and recycling center view. Let the visual hierarchy align with the content structure. Let the UI blend into the world, and make sure the interactions are low cost. So we take our glass and the UI, and all of a sudden we have a beautiful stained glass window, which also is a game board. John just said that he can hang this on his wall, so I thought maybe this can work. We kept iterating in response to the feedbacks we got from everybody. And we did many tests and trials to improve the readability of the game pieces. We created 3 different versions of the dirty environment, which will fade towards green in-game to create a feeling of renewal and hope. We did motion tests on what fading actually looks like to compare different versions. Oh, sorry. And we brought all these materials back to the kids to see if our assumptions can be verified. We're glad to find out that we hit most of our targets. They found it easy to read, they found it unique and appealing, they really liked the fading effect, and they recognized it as stained glass. They even felt a sense of story behind the art. So moving forward, they recommended the desaturated brown as the best dirty look. The kids' visual interpretation is more literal than symbolic. So we have to readdress some of our environments which are more symbolic and redraw them to prevent misinterpretation. And finally, they want clearer instructions, which we'll provide through a tutorial. Thank you. Now, Nongyi will take over to talk about programming.
Thank you, Mike. So talking about programming, we can divide our work by halves, by quarters. Sorry. Yeah, before quarters, things we haven't. Before quarters, we haven't finalized our game idea. But we do know there are some particular features we will use in our games. For example, the iPad interaction. Our client, the Steenrod Elementary School, got 30 iPads for kids to play. So we decided to use iPad as our platform. So we did some research We did some research on the iPad interaction, like the gravity control, like the multi-finger gestures, and the iOS networking. And we know we will make a multiplayer game. So we did some research on the Unity networking, including connecting Unity with AWS, and also the iOS local networking via Bluetooth, NFC, and AirDrop. Joe will talk more about this later. And we had an idea about using AR features to enhance our game experience. So we took some time to do the research on using iPad camera to scan and recognize QR code. So based on this research, we made some prototypes on the mini games. Yeah, just like you can see here, here is a trash crash machine, and the mini game on the previous slide, there's a trash grab machine. So these two mini games are used for testing the iPad control, shaking, tilting, and multi-finger tappings. So since we have got these mini games, we bring this game with us when we're visiting our clients, and we playtest our design pillars with the kids there. And it turned out the kids loves it, and we collect very positive feedback. And this feedback also helps our designers to improve our game mechanics. And more specifically on this feedback and improvements, we changed our game from physically to digital, from the AR-enhanced board game to a totally digital iPad games. One main reason is because during our playtest, we found that there's a high potential to lose items, lose the cards among these kids. It is because, just like a designer mentioned, the kids enjoy chaoses, but the chaos is easily become very messy. So we need to control the pace. We need to reduce the excessive chaoses. So we also changed our game idea from the 4 people share one screen to a multiple 4 devices game. So we just want to control the pace, reduce the chaoses. And we also don't want to see our kids just silently keep tapping their own iPads. We want to encourage more social behavior in our games. So we also changed our game rule from individual competition to a team collaboration. So the picture here is a glance of what we have done right now. So let's Joe talk more about this.
Thank you, Longyi. So here is some demos to show off main mechanic of the game. So it is the scrolling UI animation with the change. And we also have the distribution of items among players. And here is the drag and drop test, and also in the bottom there is the recycle process. We also achieve the networking communication by passing items among devices. You see, when you drag and drop the first item on the first iPad, it will go to the next iPad. Okay, so here is where we are today. So in the quarters, we see the potential of the social, so we develop the game in multiplayer way by using full networked iPad to present a 4-player game. However, we don't have much experience on this part, but after some research, we finally worked it out by using the multiplayer and networking model in Unity, and that works cool. So right now, we have the complete testing UI and simple animation. We have achieved the core mechanic of the gameplay with networking support. After the Halves, we will continue to polish it and try to take more advantages of the networking tools to make it better. So now I will pass to Casey to talk about our schedule.
Thank you. So with schedule, our next upcoming date is November 3rd. And after November 3rd, we plan to have our digital prototype complete and then spend the rest of the time iterating and debugging and playtesting that prototype. And then from there, on November 24th, we plan to have a completed app. After November 24th is our plan to completely install it onto all 30 of the Steenrod Elementary School iPads, as well as publish it to the App Store, submit it to conferences, and reach out to other schools in the area to see if they also might be interested in downloading and using this app. So in conclusion, we are Flower Power, and we are now open for questions. Yes.
Can you talk a bit more about the transformation framework that you're using and how it's applying to that?
Sure. So Sabrina Soba was happy to give us this transformational framework, and Jacob and I actually went 6 hours on working on this. It's a bunch of different questions that we went through. It helped us kind of eventually shape what the transformational goals of our experience were planning to be. It helped us identify the barriers that we were going across. It was complexity as well as relevance, and eventually we hit the 5 transformational goals, which were 3 of them were going to be educational, and 2 of them were one is going to be about cooperation, and the last one is going to be about consequences. So using those, we're trying to tie them into the game mechanics of the games, actually, the games that we're doing. So the performing recycling processing action. If they're not recycling process, the art will actually reflect what's going on. Also, they're going to have to be sorting the different materials. Some of them will be reusable. And so we're looking through the mechanics to hit those transformational goals. And this framework is trying to help us achieve that.
Yeah. You're changing to using more iPads, like you're gonna have one screen share and you're going to use more iPads. So how do you think, what is the trade-off between, distributing it to more schools that may not have that kind of infrastructure to like, do you have an option to use maybe just 2 iPads, or how does that affect the design?
At the moment, that's currently out of our scope, and so we're really looking to see if they do have 4 iPads. But this is also something, since it will be published on the App Store, if they do have 4 iPads at home, like if a family has them, then they're also able to download it and use it at home as well. Yes.
Do you think this trend can translate to iPhone as well?
The question was if we plan to translate to the iPhone, and I believe at the moment, no, because again, it's out of our scope, and we want to make sure before we are scoping more that we hit these points first.
As far as the educational goal that you have for what the students will get out of this experience, are you more focusing on teaching them some kind of perspective, or how to do certain skills, or communicating a certain body of knowledge to them? What's sort of your goal?
So the goal is to teach them 3 main concepts that hit the reduce, reuse, and recycle pillars. So for reduction, we want them to know certain small practices they can do at home, reduce their waste, such as composting, getting rid of paper towels, getting rid of toilet paper, and switching from using store-bought chemical cleaners to homemade solutions. Like, we have a lot of different little things that people can do in their everyday lives to improve their waste output and their community. Our second is reuse. There are a lot of points where people can reuse, donate, and just borrow from other people to reduce their overall waste output. And then our third being recycling. We want them to know the entire process of how something goes from a recycling plant to the components to something new, as well as what can actually be recycled and what cannot. And hopefully those elements are what they learn. We have the edict system being those actionable items, and disasters being things that can happen around their community that could negatively impact their environment, and how they as a person can go about ameliorating the situation. And these are all different points where we hope that they will have discussion in the social environment, as well as the teachers can take over and they can discuss after the experience is over.